Can you make 1 second before you let people in? Just 1 second before you let people in, yeah? Just one. There you go. All right, gang. What is up, everybody? What is up? Let the flow. Oh shit, we got some common names. We got hello, Saksham. Hey, going, sir. Nice to see you there.
Let's see.
We got Darsh as well. Hello. Omar, my OG. What up, boss? Howdy, everyone. Welcome to another consistent and rather exciting. I see. I told you, Matt just you opened it, and I was like, "Oh shit, we got we got risking in the house."
You guys are killing me. Appreciate you.
uh, all right. Look, this one is definitely one for Akash and Matt for sure. So I will be jumping off. I mean, I'll be here, but I'm just silent observer. But welcome everyone. This is gonna be a super pumped one. When I saw Matt's screenshot, I thought it was a bug on our side, but turns out he's just really good at what he does. So we love it. We want to see it. We want to learn from it as well. We got the 100% delivery man. So let's learn exactly how he does what he does. And for everyone joining, just very quickly, like I said, we'll pass on. Welcome on to the office hours. We do this every week. We've got Matt here on board who has cracked the code. As as cringy as that sounds, but he's figured out a way to get some pretty good deliverability as well as pretty good traps, as someone has said. Yeah, this is the 100% delivery to inbox. And I can tell you the numbers are not fake because I don't know how to change the numbers. So it is as true as it is right now. Um, with that being said, we do two things. The one thing we're going to start doing, and we've started doing, is everyone who stays towards the end of the episode, guess what? We've got 5 people off the everyone who stays back, 5 lucky random winners who are going to get 6,000 email verification credits on the house from Smartlead that do email verification, catch-all verification, as well as bounce verification. So you've got the full thing. 12K credits, sorry. Not 6K. It's actually 6K, but if you tag Swapnil on Slack, it'll be 12K. That's how it works. Oh, all right. Thank you all for jumping on board. We'll pass on the message, the mic to Akash. But as I do, before I go and give the screen to the man who will run it, drop it in the bottom right corner in the chat. Where in the world are you from and what the temperature is at? Let's see how global we're going. How global are these traps? Deadlifts. All right. Deadlifts are the way you get into the inbox. That's it. Everyone start doing deadlifts.
That's the actual secret. Yeah,
That's
office hours over, guys. Sorry.
it. Okay, we got Argentina, I got Washington, Sweden. PN, I'm going to take us Tennessee. Got South Africa, New Jersey, Dallas, Dublin. Uh, I don't think there's a city called 7 degrees Celsius, but might be wrong. Um, Toronto, Ohio, Lebanon, Lagos. Love it. Hey, falafels. All right. We got Bogota. We've got Vishakhapatnam. Hey, look at you. Nice. We got Georgia. We got Spaghetti Triangle. I don't know if that's a thing or not. We got
I'm from New
Slovakia.
Jersey,
All
and I
right.
don't know where the spaghetti triangle is, but okay.
That's a
Good to see
name and
some
a
New
half.
Jerseyans in here.
That's a name and a half. All right. We've got the crowd flowing in. Akash flows on to you, sir. I am going to go off.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you for the introduction.
Thanks,
And
Steve.
hi, hello, and welcome you all to Office Us. As you know, this happens every Thursday, and we appreciate you all taking the time. And today, we have Matt Jesuele from Neural Jets. Matt is the commander of the operations wing at Neural Jets. And a little bit more about Neural Jets. They currently provide cold email infrastructure and custom automations to over 300 businesses. I was having a conversation with Matt, and of course, by looking at him, he lifts, he enjoys lifting, and he also drives fast bikes, and he owns a 5,000 RR. So, Matt, we'd love to hear from you. A quick round of introduction, please.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Akash. Yeah, so like I said, I help run Neural Jets with my co-founder. I got into the cold email world a few years ago and started with the lead gen agency. Kind of learned the ropes that way. Ran into all the deliverability issues of our own. Then last year, I met my current business partner through a client ascension event. Actually, if we got any client ascension people in here now, the event happening this weekend in Tampa. I met him last year at the same event. And eventually we developed our own cold email infrastructure. We actually had bigger plans for it, like a whole AI-driven end-to-end kind of thing. That never materialized, but we did build out the infrastructure and realized we could sell it. Then a few months ago, we started doing the back-end infrastructure for list kits done for you setup offer. And that got us a lot of volume and scale. So we were able to figure out things pretty quickly. And that's kind of where we are now.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And as we mentioned, when we first saw the results, we thought it was a bug from our end, but it was clearly not. So Matt has the secrets to 100% placements, and that's what we're getting into today. So Matt, let's cut to the chase. The first topic that I wanted to talk about today is running custom private infrastructure, right? So what is your approach to building and managing a custom cold email infrastructure? Because you guys do that on a large scale, and we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so you have some options when it comes to how you build out a custom cold email infrastructure. One of the things that you've probably seen a lot lately is infrastructures that are built on like Microsoft technology. They use Exchange and Azure IPs and things like that. We actually went a different route. We run a completely custom setup. So using an open source mail server software, and then we run on a cloud provider that we actually found ourselves through it's a smaller one, through a personal relationship that my co-founder had. And we got explicit permission from them to run cold email on it, which I think a lot of people don't do. They try to fly under the radar. And that ultimately comes with some risks. So, we think it was definitely a good move that we got explicit permission from them. It means that they've scrutinized us a little bit at times. And I can talk a little bit more about what that has meant for us. Right. But yeah, that's the basics of how we set it up. And, we can dive into all the details.
Absolutely. And how does the team secure cloud provider permission for cold email? Because that's the next question I had.
Yeah, so in this case, like I said, my co-founder actually had a personal relationship previously with some people at the cloud provider that we use. Mm-hmm. And if you have something like that, a personal connection, somebody in your network, I would definitely recommend going through that. You just reached out and said that we were, thinking about running this at first sell and then maybe putting some clients onto it. And they were open to it. Yeah. If you don't have that personal relationship, you might have to reach out cold, but you might be surprised at how willing some of these cloud providers are to let you do that. I would suggest going with a smaller one though, like the AWSs and Azures and Google Cloud platforms of the world probably aren't going to be too keen on it and may not even respond to you. But I think the smaller cloud providers are more likely to be receptive.
Got it. And what are the benefits of this, Matt? Because that will be the next question. Let's say you acquired one, you found one, and you have your infrastructure there. What do you think are the benefits? And on the other hand, what do you think are the challenges with this?
Well, maybe I'll start with the challenges because it's definitely a lot more work to manage your own private infrastructure compared to, just using one of these shared services, like signing up for some Google or Microsoft inboxes. There's a lot more of a barrier to entry. You have to have some basic technical knowledge. You're going to be responsible for, provisioning servers, for maintaining your own IP addresses, troubleshooting problems, things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a lot of work. But the upside is that you have complete control. Nobody is going to suspend your accounts. One of the problems that people are having with Microsoft is that they deliberately put you on bad IPs if they see that you're doing cold email a lot of the time. So suddenly your deliverability is tanked. So those are things that you can avoid. And then if you're doing a lot of email, like if you're doing a lot of scale, then running your own infrastructure is probably going to be more cost effective in the long term rather than signing up for all these inboxes at, $6 a month or maybe less if you're using resellers, but still. And then I think the final point is that you have a lot more opportunity to automate things. So if you have some technical chops, you can really streamline a lot of your processes. Like, we add email addresses and set up domains automatically. So it's very simple. It takes a lot of the hassle out of scaling.
Fair enough. And would this be the same answer for, let's say if I had to do a comparison between the benefits and challenges between going for a private infrastructure and using a shared service. So would this be the same?
So if you're thinking about going, you mean like if you're thinking about going with, somebody else's private infrastructure, like signing onto a private infrastructure service? Yeah, so if you're not maintaining it yourself, then a lot of those challenges are in the hands of the provider that you're using rather than being things that you have to directly deal with. So I would say the thing there. So I mean, obviously, you're going to be paying a little bit more, to the third party because they have to make money on their service, and you have to trust them to manage things correctly. So IP management and things like that. From what we've seen out there in the wild, some
Fair enough. And I'll take
yeah,
that as a
enough
hook to
said.
jump on. I'll take that as a hook to jump on to the next topic. You brought IPs up, I didn't. So optimizing IP pools for deliverability. Why do you think shared IP pools can outperform dedicated IPs in many cases, Matt?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of a controversial point, but what we've seen strongly is that the amount of volume that you send through an IP address matters a lot. So we've seen a lot of services pop up lately which promise dedicated IPs for what end up being relatively small volumes of email. And in our experience, that actually doesn't work that well. Like if you're not sending that much volume through an IP address, um, the deliverability is just not going to be as good as if there's you know a higher solid amount of good volume running through it. And we actually saw that as we kind of scaled up our operations, our deliverability got better, as a matter of fact, because we were running more volume through the IPs. So, a lot of people have this notion, I think, that dedicated IPs are always better. The main advantage of a dedicated IP is that nobody else's activity affects your deliverability. So you don't have to worry that, your neighbor on your IP address is sending some Uber spam campaign that's going to tank your IP reputation without you having done anything wrong. But, again, you have to be running that sufficient amount of volume through it to really see the benefits of the dedicated IP. So,
Got it. And taking a step back and picking something from the chat, how are these private clouds managed from an ops perspective? Are there provisioning dashboards or similar conveniences?
yeah. So, Phil, so our particular cloud provider does have a dashboard for provisioning resources. I think if you're doing this at scale, you eventually do want to get to a point where you're actually provisioning them through code, through something like Terraform or something like that, where you're not clicking around in a dashboard, but you're actually defining the infrastructure in code, and it could be provisioned automatically. But yeah, we have a dashboard with our cloud provider, and then we built a bunch of other like scripts and automations and things around that as well to automate various tasks, automatically configure certain kinds of components to the infrastructure and things like that.
Got it. Thank you for that, Matt. And picking one other question from chat. So again, what would be the difference between MailForge, MailDoso, or similar solution and what you described as a private infrastructure?
Yeah, so Meldoso, I'm not familiar with how they do things on the back end of their solution. MailForge, I know that they actually are just a reseller of OpenSRS inboxes or enum. They're both the same, basically. They're both owned by a company called Two Cows. So MailForge does things very differently from what we do. They just have some other provider that they get email addresses from even more cheaply. They mark them up a little bit. They put some automations around it, convenient UI and everything, and resell those. Yeah, it's Two Cows. Yep. Two Cows has two email products, OpenSRS and Enom, ENOM. I'm actually not sure which one MailForge uses, but it's one of the two. They're pretty similar. As far as some of the other solutions out there that are actually fully custom infrastructure, so as I said, some of them make different choices. Like a lot of them run on Microsoft, using Microsoft Exchange as the mail server, Azure as the cloud, and they're using Azure IPs. I think that there are some risks involved with that because I don't think Microsoft wants people using their IP addresses for cold email, as you can see by how they treat you when you use Outlook to send cold email. So we decided we didn't want to go that route. So that's the difference between us and some of the others. MailReef does something broadly similar to what we do. I can't speak to exactly what they do on their back end, but they're probably one of the ones out there that are most similar to us.
Got it. Thank you so much, Matt. And taking a step forward again to what you were talking about optimizing IP pools for deliverability. So you did mention why IP pools can outperform dedicated IPs, but maintaining high volume and rotating IPs when reputation is damaged is important. Why is that?
Yeah. So cold email is, as everybody knows, cold email is detrimental to the long-term health of an IP address. And pretty much there's no way around it. Like if you're using an IP address for cold email for long enough, you're probably going to see some slide in the reputation of it. So it is important that, when you have your pool of IP addresses, that you actually keep an eye on that reputation. There are a few ways to do it. So you can actually get insights directly from Google and Microsoft by signing up for their feedback loop services. Google has something called Postmaster Tools. Microsoft has something called SNDS. I think it's the Smart Network Data Service. And they will give you some insight into how they view your IPs. Those are things that we look at. And if you're running a lot of volume through an IP, you should look at. Sender Score is another. So senderscore I think it's .org maybe, run by a company called Validity. Right. And they assign a numerical score to your IP address. It's on a scale from, I guess, 0 to 100, but anything under, really, we like to see ours above 90, but they say anything above 80 is like a reasonable IP score.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how do you maintain a good IP score, Matt? Because that's my next question.
Yeah, well, so, again, it's pretty much inevitable that over time they do tend to decline. So you got to make sure that you have enough IPs at your disposal that you can rotate them out. But we do have some things in place to try to keep them from getting too bad in the first place. So we do exercise a fair bit of kind of scrutiny and control over what our clients send through the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. We do that a few ways. Actually, a lot of our clients are sending through a Smartlead white label. So we have direct access to their campaign stats and their campaign copy and things like that. We audit performance weekly and see who's getting replies, who's not, and who's sending a lot of emails without getting very many replies at all, because that's a big red flag. So if you go and look at the campaigns, if anybody's doing anything which is really kind of overtly spammy or the targeting is very poor, we have a talk with them. Right. There are some other things too. So some of our clients have sent to large lists of personal emails, and we noticed that was really not having a good effect on the IPs. Mm-hmm. Email service providers really don't like bulk email to personal email addresses. They scrutinize it very closely. And if you have a lot of that going on, you're going to see your IPs getting burned up quickly. So we did two things there. We talked to them about, kind of cleaning up their lead list and getting a lot of the personal emails off of there. And I would recommend, by the way, if you're sending cold email campaigns, just don't send to personal email addresses. If you can at all help it, like maybe there are some offers where you basically have to because of what the offer is. But in a B2B context, I just wouldn't do it. Deliverability to personal email addresses is poor anyway because they have much stricter spam filters. Mm-hmm. And they're a lot more likely to get you flagged as spam, to get you in hot water with the email service providers, damage your IP reputation. So that's something we take pretty seriously.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you've given the breakdown of these three things, but if you were to give a quick summary of these 4 bullet points in terms of best practices for monitoring and managing your IP reputations, you did cover that. You told us how you can check our IP scores and what are all the do's and don'ts. But if you were to give and summarize for the users 4 quick points, what would it be, Matt?
For monitoring your IP reputation, so sender score is good. So regularly check your sender score of your IPs that you're using for sending. You want to check for IP blacklists. So blacklists out there, some of them will blacklist you by domain, but some will blacklist entire IP addresses. Mm-hmm. So you want to check and make sure that your IP addresses are not on any blacklists. Incidentally, a point here too. So a lot of the blacklists out there, you can check through tools which will check a lot of different blacklists at once. Smartlead has one built in. There's another one at valley.org, VALLI.org, that a lot of people use. But one of them that's actually pretty prominent right now that affects your deliverability is CloudMark. And CloudMark actually will not show up on any of those blacklist checkers. It doesn't have an endpoint that you can query for. So the only way to really see if you're on a CloudMark blacklist is to check your bounce notifications. You'll actually see emails getting rejected, and it'll tell you it's because your IP address is on a CloudMark blacklist. So keep an eye on bounce notifications. And then the final thing that we do, this doesn't directly give you a score for your IP reputation or anything like that, but it helps us manage. We sign up to feedback loop services on behalf of our clients. So those feedback loops will send you. So for instance, when somebody marks an email as spam and generates a spam report, we actually get copies of those spam reports. So we can see which campaigns are generating a lot of spam reports, and then we can remediate things that way, make sure that those people are not sent to, or for instance, if we notice that a company very consistently generates spam reports. So guys, I would not cold email Apple, by the way. That's something we've noticed. Cold emailing Apple is like a guaranteed spam report in our experience. So those are things that we do to monitor and manage IP reputation.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks for the heads up. People, you heard him. Never cold email Apple. So uh, something that you told John to avoid, things to avoid is do not reach out to personal email addresses. But John had a question, which is fair, where if you're a B2C service, what else would you suggest?
I mean, I kind of agree with Phil. Paid ads might not be a bad idea, right? I think cold emailing to individuals through their personal email addresses is tough. The spam filters are a lot higher, so you're just a lot more likely to end up in spam to begin with. And if you're managing your own IP reputation, or you're on a service where the IP reputation is not, maybe what I want to say is I would probably stick to like using, if you really want to cold email those kinds of addresses, I would stick to using like Google Workspace accounts, where the IP reputation is kind of not your problem. You might get your accounts suspended or whatever and have to rotate them out. But it's kind of Google's problem in that case. I still think it's probably not likely to get you great results, but that's probably what I would do.
Awesome. John, you heard Matt. And Matt, next question that I personally had was, and someone on the chat dropped it as well. So let's say my IP scores are bad, my IPs are gone. I'm also listed in a couple of blacklists. What is the next step? What do I do about it? Because I've personally heard multiple people say multiple things, talk to the ESP, ask for new IPs or dump the IPs, go for new ones. So what do you think is the next best thing people can do once they've seen their IP scores drop or once they've seen their IPs get blacklisted?
Yeah, so if you're on one of the shared services like Microsoft or Google, you can try reaching out to their support. I'm not sure if I've ever heard of Google actually rotating people's IP addresses. I don't think they really do that. I know Microsoft will in some cases. It seems like it depends on the luck of the draw as far as who you get for your support agent. Some of them won't know what you're talking about. Others will and will help you. If you're using a private infrastructure service that you're not maintaining yourself, then you'll want to talk to them. They may have something in place depending on who you're using, where they might proactively reach out to you about poor IP, or they already handled it on their back end. Like it's essentially what we do. But that said, if one of our customers came to us and said, "Hey, I have some concerns about the IP address that I've noticed my emails are sending from. Can you rotate me?" We would take a look at it, and depending on what we saw there, we'd either tell them that no, there's really no problem, or yeah, okay, it's we'll change this one out and get a new one rotated in. If you're managing it yourself, then that's all in your hands. So you're going to have a pool of IP addresses that you have access to, generally through your cloud provider at first. Like that's how we started. Our cloud provider is leasing us IP addresses that they control. Eventually, if you're doing this at high enough volume, your cloud provider is probably going to ask you to get your own IP addresses, which we actually have had to do recently. So we had to go out and buy a block of our own IP addresses on the open market, which it's not cheap. And then so that now we have a pool of our own IP addresses, and when we notice that one needs to be rotated out, we have a fresh one. We have them warming up in the background, and we just switch it on the server that's sending the cold emails.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for that, Matt. And I'm picking one from the chat. So Saksham asked, how much time have passed using this cloud provider? Question for you. How much time have passed using this cloud provider? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So we started using them probably back in January or February. We may have had an account with them before that, but we started, really like scaling up the cold email operations around then. But they're well aware of what we're doing. So, it's not like, we've been hiding from them or anything like that. They knew from the very start that we were doing cold email. So I think it's fair to say that we're not they've been very open and communicative with us. So I don't think that there are any like looming problems there that once we're on them for longer, we're going to have an issue or anything like that. Yeah, they've been very cool. But yeah, since February or so.
Got it. And one from Marcelo. Is it fair to assume it's game over once you've been added to CloudMark's IP block list?
Yeah, so I agree with what Aiden said. CloudMark, just like any blacklist, will probably delist you if you request. If you end up on their blacklist repeatedly, you may have problems getting delisted. Even if you are on the blacklist, though, I wouldn't say it's game over. It's definitely one of the more consequential blacklists in terms of the effects on your deliverability. You will notice, if you're on the CloudMark blacklist, you will see bounce notifications about it. But you'll probably still get emails out at a pretty high rate. So no, it's not game over if you're listed on CloudMark's blacklist.
Awesome. You heard of Marcelo. And Doug had a question. So this was probably when we first started the topic. You did refer to high volume of cold emails. What do you deem as high volume?
Yeah, so 20K. So yeah, Nicholas is asking this is the question: at what daily volume does it make sense to implement these kinds of solutions?
That was one. Doug has also asked a similar question.
Yeah, so I would say at 20K, no, I don't think. If you're talking about 20K a day or 20K a month, if it's 20K a month, then no. I would say at that point, it's probably not worth it to start implementing yourself. Maybe worth it to get on somebody else's private infrastructure. I think a lot of them have plans that cover that. Our smallest doesn't. We start at 50K. If you're sending hundreds of thousands of emails a month or more, then yeah, it might be well worth your time, especially if you already have some technical know-how to look into setting up your own private infrastructure.
Got it. Thank you, Matt. And the next topic is something that we did cover. You did mention do not reach out to personal email addresses. You gave a workaround for B2C companies. But are there any strategies for avoiding damage when sending to personal email addresses?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I was actually reading through the chat real quick.
No problem, go for it. But what I was asking is, are there any strategies for avoiding damage when you're sending emails to personal email addresses?
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, the better your offer and targeting are, the better your outcome is going to be across the board, right? The email service providers scrutinize your emails to personal email addresses a lot more. So they want to see an even lower spam complaint rate than they will tolerate for emails to their professional inboxes. So, as always, tightening up your targeting, your offer and your copy will help. Something else that we do, so this doesn't exactly avoid the damage of sending to personal IP addresses, but it contains it. We actually started routing emails to personal email addresses through a particular IP address.
Right.
It's kind of our own low reputation or high risk outbound pool. And we do rotate that out when it gets damaged to a substantial extent. And it does burn more quickly than our other IPs. But routing the personal emails through a specific IP keeps the other ones a little bit fresher for the B2B sending. So yeah, that's something that we do.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And there's one on the chat, Matt, if you'd want to see. So I think it's from Joe. So it's basically for the less technical people and lower volume users. It basically sounds like just buying new domains is the only solution to burnt domains still.
Yeah, well, I would say even if you are running your own private infrastructure or on somebody else's, if the domain is burnt, then the only solution is to get a new domain. So reputation happens on at least 3 different levels. You have IP reputation, domain reputation, and then individual sending accounts do have some kind of reputation as well. IP and domain are much stronger factors than individual account reputation. But if the domain is burned, then, because if the domain has a poor reputation, the only solution is to stop using that domain, maybe put it on warm up for a while. You might be able to recover it. But yeah, if your domain is burned, yeah, you gotta get a new one.
Awesome. And Aaron has a really interesting one, Matt. So he says, when your domain renewal's coming up around the year mark, are you always better off getting new ones instead of renewing, or does domain age count just as much?
Yeah, that's a good question. Domain age does count for a lot. Age domains do perform better for a few reasons. So new domains end up on several blacklists automatically. There are a few of them out there that they just track. It's like the Fresh 14, Fresh 30. They track domains that have been registered in the last 2 weeks, last 30 days. So in that period, you might notice that your deliverability is significantly affected. So one good reason why it's a good idea to run some warm-ups so you can kind of get out of that period before you start sending campaign emails. But then even after you're out of that kind of initial probationary period, yeah, domain age is a major positive factor in deliverability. The catch, of course, is that your domain has to have a good sending history. So a domain that's been blasting Nigerian print scam emails for a year that's not what we're talking about. It's probably got a bad reputation, and the domain age is not going to overcome that. But if you've been sending reliably through a domain for a year, yeah, I would hold on to it rather than get a new one.
Got it. Thank you so much, Matt. And the next question is mostly for all the agencies out here, right? So Neural Jets, you guys do a huge volume, and as we've seen, you're doing consistent results as well. So how does Neural Jets maintain quality standard across all your client campaigns?
Yeah, so we do a weekly performance audit. So we take a look at all the clients that are sending through the infrastructure, and for the ones that we have on our Smartlead white label, we can actually see the individual campaigns. So we take a look at their reply rate, and for the ones that we have access to, the positive reply rate. And that's the first step. I mean, when so there's a huge variance in our client results. Like some of them get, upwards of 1% positive reply rates on their emails sent, which is very good. So for 100 emails they send, they get, at least one positive reply. And then we have others who, we can see they're sending tens of thousands of emails and getting 0 positive replies. That's, that's obviously a big red flag. So once we generally will use that performance audit as kind of the first step to figuring out who we need to take a closer look at. And then when we do go and dig in, usually we see various kinds of issues like, unclear copy or really sloppy targeting or, things like that. And yeah, when we notice those things, we intervene with the clients to kind of get them back on track.
Got it. And talking about copies, right? So this has been a question all the time. We understand, we've heard from all the guests that conversational copies, 4 to 5 liners, sprint taxes all over seems to be working fine. But what's your take on the importance of consistent, high quality messaging for deliverability, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. So one thing, so I feel like this has been kind of a misconception lately that didn't used to exist and has only started to recently. Kind of before the deliverability crisis and before people were talking about, different cold email infrastructures, I think everybody knew that sending low quality or kind of spammy messages would end up with you in spam. That was just kind of common knowledge. And I should say for a while, email warm-up worked so well that you kind of could for a little bit send almost anything and still inbox. But even then, I think people kind of understood that, if you send spammy emails, you will end up in spam. Lately, it seems like there's been people have forgotten this a little bit, and there's almost this idea that if you have the right infrastructure, you can send any email you want and it's going to inbox. And that's definitely not the case. Like we've noticed on our infrastructure. So when we take inboxes that have have been running high quality campaigns or have only been running warm up or whatever, we get 10 out of 10, 100% deliverability scores. But if you take one of those accounts that is, it's primed for great deliverability, it's inboxing everywhere, and you run a lousy spam campaign through it. We actually had one client who had like dollar bill emojis in the subject line of their email. And, just, it was like the subject line looked like it was written by ChatGPT, and it was really bad. And again, so they took one of those inboxes that was previously getting 10 out of 10 deliverability scores and sent 28,000 emails in a week with no responses. So there's no way around it. If you send a low quality campaign, if you're blasting out something that isn't resonating with the people that you're targeting, you're going to end up in spam no matter how good your infrastructure is.
Got it. Thank you so much, Matt. And I'm picking one from the chat. So Wen had a question. Would migrating domain host, say changing from GoDaddy to Google domains, affect the domain reputation?
Yeah, so previously I was kind of skeptical of that. I didn't think that it mattered too much where your domains were registered. What we found recently, we were playing around with Spamhouse's API and just running some of the domains that we had in our stable against it. And we noticed that domains registered on Pork Bun and that had just been doing warm up actually had lower reputation, according to Spamhouse, than domains that we registered a similar amount of time ago and were similarly just sending warm up from on another registrar. Like the one that we tested was DNS Simple. And even though these domains were similar age and had been used for similar things, yeah, they consistently came back with different reputation scores. So yeah, I think it does matter to some extent where you register your domains. Seems like Pork Bun might be a little cooked. It's definitely not like a death sentence for your deliverability, but if that's something that concerns you, then I would pay attention to that. Spamhouse, probably other entities as well, but Spamhouse publishes a list of domain registrars by how many malicious domains they have on them. It's a weighting that takes into account both the sheer number of malicious domains and the proportion of malicious domains that they've observed. Yeah, and I would go check that out. Just search for Spamhouse registrar. Yeah, Spamhouse registrar list will probably do it. And further down the list is better.
Got it. And picking one from the chat again from Joe, and I think people are interested to know this, including me. Thoughts on filtering out Outlook recipients completely and just sending emails to Google? What is your take on that, Matt?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people have been doing that lately. I mean, I would say if you have limited sending capacity and you don't want to, because I think everybody here knows that Outlook has been very difficult to deliver to lately. Kind of across the board, although more on that in a second. But I would say if you have limited sending capacity and you're concerned about using it in the best way possible, yeah, you might want to go and filter out Outlook recipients for the time being. Keep an eye on the situation, see if it evolves. That said, I mean, we're still delivering pretty well to Outlook. On our fresh inboxes, we're getting, perfect placement rates to them. And I think for our client campaigns, they're still definitely inboxing on Outlook. So I don't know, we're not advising our clients to completely take Outlook recipients out of their lead lists yet. But, I understand why some people are.
Got it. And coming to the end of the session, right? This is my last topic, and I just had a question from Philip regarding the same as well. So what are the importance of warm-ups and infrastructure maintenance?
Yeah,
yeah.
And I see Phil. I see V's comment too. So Phil, yeah, warm up we have found is still essential. We do it on a few different levels. So first, we do require our clients on the infrastructure to run warm up on their own accounts, and that keeps the IP addresses warm as well. We also warm up the IP addresses separately before we bring them into service for clients. And yeah, we found that to be essential. We've tested a few times running client campaigns with warm up turned off. And what we found was that our IP reputation took an immediate, noticeable, significant hit. Right. The main mechanism there was that the spam complaint rate, the effective spam complaint rate, went through the roof. And that's the biggest benefit of warm up, that it, kind of masks the spam complaints that you're getting through your cold emails and artificially brings the spam complaint rate down. So yeah, we did that experiment, saw immediate damage to our IPs, and immediately turned it back on and haven't looked back. I do not think that Google and Microsoft are currently targeting warm-up pools and like mass people, based on their participation in the warm-up pools. I don't see any evidence that that's happening, because if it was happening, our deliverability would be toast, and it's not.
Got it. And that was pretty much everything I had from my end. And one last question would be, again, we've gone over it, but in multiple pieces. What are your tips for consistent IP health and inbox maintenance, Matt?
My tips?
Yes, sir. For IP health, consistent IP health, and inbox maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like kind of covered
We did.
everything. Yeah, everything that's really important. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to run high quality campaigns if you want consistent deliverability. So that's something that you really just can't get around. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are hoping for some infrastructure solution which will come along and allow them to not pay as much attention to campaign quality and still get killer results. And I mean, I'm sorry to tell you folks, it's not happening. Um, so that's, number one, you still have to spend time on your campaigns, make sure you have a dialed in lead list, make sure you have a great offer, make sure the copy is clear, doesn't contain spam words, etc. Um, consistently monitor things, if you are managing your own IP addresses, you want to have some kind of SOP and preferably automated for consistently checking your sender scores, for registering and keeping an eye on the information that you get from the feedback loops, Google Postmaster Tools, Microsoft SNDS, all the other feedback loops that give you spam reports. Um, and yeah, when you start to notice that something is headed down, make sure that you get in there and swap it out promptly because it's only going to get worse.
Got it. That's all I had. We is here for a reason. Wipe off Kufr.
Yeah, sorry, just had one question, actually two.
Yeah.
Um, so I think someone was asking, so just help out Philip. You mentioned about a provider other than a provider other than pork bun. Which was the one that you recommended?
So the one that we tested some of our domains from is DNS Simple.
Okay. Yeah.
They're a little more expensive than Pork Bun, but at least as of right now, it does seem like they have
Workable.
kind of better reputation, domains out the gate. Could change. If a bunch of cold emailers start using them, then that could change. So yeah, that's it, Phil.
Don't this office hours does not, please don't blame us. Then the second question I had for you, Matt, is a new pattern or trend we're seeing with people speaking about uh proxying your CNAME, so that how the traditional way is you white label or white mask your CNAME, your domain with something else, etc. And there's a new trend coming in where the suggestion is to not just do one level redirect, but do a 3 to 4 level redirect. I don't have much to say on that because I haven't seen enough palpable outcome yet, but we never know. Domain masking might be like the proxying might be something that's palpable. I wanted to know what your thoughts were with that.
Yeah, kind of similar to you. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen any data that shows, a clear difference. I will say that what we do for our clients, we have our own personal, like our own private redirection service. So even for our clients who have domains registered on Pork Bun, we do not use Pork Bun's URL forwarding. When you use your registrar's built-in URL forwarding, your domain actually points to their IP address, and it's an IP address that's shared with many other domains. You don't know what they're doing or anything. And so the reputation is not always stellar. So we have our own redirection service with an IP that we control. And if we notice that it's having problems, we can swap out that IP address. And I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but we thought it was a good practice to put in. So we did.
Awesome. Fair enough. Just before Akash takes on the last piece, I think obviously we're gonna have questions and stuff, Matt. Just to do a quick call out to everyone. Um, it's no longer a hidden topic anymore. We've got smart senders coming out very, very soon. I don't want to say the date because if I say the date, then the team who's building it will shoot me. So, but I think when we launched the private access, we kept it to 250 people. That got filled up in about 100 seconds. So I'm dropping it in again for whoever wants to just put it in. We've definitely breached the original list of 250 that we want to give to, but the demand was quite strong. So if you haven't put your name in yet, pop it in there and we'll be in touch with you very, very, very soon. With that being said, okay, someone just asked a question regarding that. I'll just answer that if you don't mind, and then we'll let open the floor up to math questions. Smartly never sends emails in 10-minute gaps. We always have randomization. We've had randomization since the day we launched. You will always see your emails go out in 8 minutes, 11 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever you should put 10 minutes. There's always delta, but the delta is also protected with the safety layer as well. So floor's back onto you, Akash and Matt, for any questions that people might have.
Yeah. So you know the drill, guys. Right at the bottom, center bottom, reactions. Raise your hand if you have any questions for Matt. And once you turn on your video, we'll spotlight you. Are you guys able to find it? Center, reactions, click on raise hand, and we'll spotlight you for any questions you may have.
Center reaction. Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I mean, in the meantime, you do have a ton of questions that are being
Chat, yeah, on the chat.
Yeah, there's a ton of questions on the chat, so I'll actually go through those while people put their hand up if there's something for them to ask. I guess one question that has come up a few times actually is, well, Matt, should we still keep tracking opens since Google has blocked it, or what's your go?
We don't recommend it. I think there are a lot of reasons why the open rate tracking is pretty inaccurate, whether it's automatically blocked by some providers or automatically opened by others. So not only is it inaccurate, but you don't even necessarily know which direction it's inaccurate in. It's kind of hard to say. And moreover, it's not really the thing you care about anyway, right? Like ultimately, you care more about whether you're getting positive replies, whether those are converting to meetings. So our thought on it is if it hurts deliverability, if it's got inaccuracies, and it's not actually the most important thing to measure anyway, then why bother? Kind of a vanity metric, I think.
Fair enough. We got our first person who wants to open the floor. We'll take that in a second. Actually, we'll take that and I have a question to ask. So yeah, I'll just unpin myself.
Right. And if you can turn on your video, we'll spotlight you. There you go. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. Hello, guys. So thank you, Matt. Thank you, Akash. And thank you, of course, Baba, for everything you guys doing. I have a quick question. I just began new campaigns for several of my clients. And some of my clients' domains are being IP blacklisted for several blacklists. I'm using Outlook and Gmail for that. Should I pay any attention to those like smaller blacklists that pops up in the campaign section in Smartlead?
I mean, I would say whenever you notice that your domains or IPs are blacklisted, it's if you can get them delisted, it's probably a good use of your time. As far as if you can't get them delisted, do you then abandon those domains? I would say in most cases, unless it's a major blacklist and you can see in the results that you're getting that it's causing problems, like the reply rates are clearly lower than you would otherwise expect, then maybe. But if not, then I just wouldn't worry about it too much.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
awesome. Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. There you go. Chirag, do you mind turning on your video? Yep, go for it, mate.
Thanks. Hi, Matt. Thanks, Akash and Vibe for doing this. Really cool stuff what you guys are doing. So my question, Matt, like when you're considering scaling, well, like what stages do you start looking into all these solutions? Like if you're at 10K, do you still remain with Google and Outlook, or do you start branching out already? Like how do you start looking at private infrastructure and then start building your own infrastructure and so on and so forth? Like how do you look at the scale?
Yeah, and when you say 10K, do you mean like 10K messages a month or emails a month? Okay. Yeah, at 10K emails a month, I mean that's still pretty small. Even at that scale, it may be beneficial in the current landscape to diversify your sending accounts a little bit. In the past, a lot of people would just sign up with all Google, all Outlook. And I think that's increasingly a big risk because these providers are having more and more problems more frequently, and it kind of changes from week to week, month to month. So if you don't have a diversified basket of sending accounts, then two things are going to happen. First of all, you're not going to have comparisons to be able to spot problems when they happen. All you'll really know is the single set of inboxes that you have. You don't have other results in similar campaigns to cross-check them against. And then if something does happen, all your eggs are in one basket. So if you're using all Outlook accounts and Outlook deliverability goes to pot, then you're just not landing very many emails in the inbox. So even at a smaller scale, I would say it's worth, diversifying, and part of that diversified basket of sending accounts could definitely be, some private infrastructure. As far as when it makes sense to start thinking about building your own, I'd say, if you're technically inclined, meaning that it's not going to be a super hard lift, like you don't have to learn absolutely everything from scratch, then probably by the time you're sending hundreds of thousands of emails a month, um, you might find that it's actually worthwhile to do that.
Gotcha. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Any other questions? How are I'm seeing something on the chat? How are you
There's a
checking
lot. Yeah,
deliverability rates? Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. There's a lot
smart
of questions.
delivery, run email placement tests, and that would be your answer.
Yeah. I mean, inbox placement tests are still the gold standard for deliverability rates. There's no other. I mean, email service providers don't tell you straight up. In some cases, they do actually. Like you can go into Microsoft's admin panel, and if you're sending entirely within their ecosystem, they can give you some indications as to whether your emails are landing in the inbox or junk. But for the most part, yeah, ESPs don't directly report when you're landing in the inbox, so you have to run inbox placement tests where the inboxes that you're sending to are controlled by the provider of the test. So smart delivery is obviously a great inbox placement test. That's the one that we, kind of prompted this whole office hours. And yeah, that's going to be the main way.
Awesome.
Yeah, smart delivery to the rescue, indeed.
And Salma had a question. We shouldn't use spammy subject lines, of course, but is it not advisable to give away too much in the subject? So the subject line in B2B cold emails is something that an internal employee would send to another employee. What tips do you have on this?
Yeah, I think, reasonable minds can differ on this. So I guess what I would say is there's some things I definitely wouldn't do. Well, as you said, we know the subject line shouldn't be spammy. Yeah, don't do that. Don't put like I said, dollar bill emojis into the subject line. It shouldn't be, like elevate your sales game with product name, right? Like some looking like, ChatGPT wrote it. I've seen all kinds of different subject lines work aside from that, though. I do think quick question is pretty cooked at this point. I know, that's been an argument going on for like years now. But even I think some of the most stalwart defenders of quick question have started to notice that it doesn't have the same punch it used to. But aside from that, I mean, I feel like it doesn't matter hugely. I know the internal camo, where it looks like something an internal employee would have sent is a popular strategy. I think that works reasonably well. Um, I've gotten some cold emails from, maybe you guys have seen them, from Inframail, which are kind of uh, like borderline offensive almost. You read it and you're like, oh my God, what? And you click on it. So they kind of clickbaity, but in a way that kind of works. I don't know. I think there are lots of strategies that still work when it comes to subject lines. You just kind of, it probably also matters who you're emailing, right? Like if you're sending to, money Twitter agencies versus e-com brands versus the Fortune 500, I think it's gonna differ.
Fair.
Awesome.
I have a question, just maybe what Prince has asked.
I was about to ask you
you're
to
good
read
at-
it.
Yeah,
No, I was
good.
about to ask
Yeah.
Matt to read it because it was too big. I didn't want to confuse him. So.
It's so good. So basically, Prince, if this is Prince, that the Prince I know, he's obviously OG. He knows his stuff. They've been doing tests to land in Microsoft 365. And what he's noticed is that whenever he's got the clean IP set up, he's got good copy, domains are all good, everything's basically sorted out. Domains where the email server was set up immediately after the domain was purchased have an issue, but domains that are old never had an issue to do with landing in the inbox. Do you have any insights? I guess to summarize the question is buy, set up, and send versus really old set up and send. There's a big difference where the really old ones are clearly outperforming the ones that are quick purchase. Do you think that there is some correlation there?
Yeah. I think, and that's a strategy that I know some people use, going and buying aged domains. There's no doubt that domain age is a significant positive factor in deliverability. So if you have a good source for age domains that you can verify that the reputation is good before you buy them, Yeah, I do think that's viable. And then, as you also mentioned, buying them and essentially warming them up for much longer. Yeah, I think that also is a good strategy. Everybody likes to send emails as quickly as you can. And, generally a 2-week warm up is pretty good for most purposes, but I think there's no doubt that running warm up for longer is actually better, and may increasingly be necessary to deliver to, say, Outlook in the current climate. So yeah, I think those are very viable strategies.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, that makes sense. All right, we'll take one more question. We've got all right, Matt, you've kept the crowd going, man. We've got a solid number still staying by. Um, just so for reference again, whoever's over here now, the 110, 20, 130 of you, 5 of you are gonna get 12K AV credits. So congrats to the 5 that make it. And that's gonna happen every single office hours. We'll take one more question, Matt, to be respectful of your time as well. You've been here with us an hour. Um, and you either have to go eat protein or do weights or send emails. So I want to be respectful of your time. Um, I want to just pick up one final question, which is to do with IP warm-ups, and perhaps
Yeah.
ignore my ignorance because I was just a bit titsy bitsy in something else during the early start of the call. How does someone warm up their IP? Firstly, that's maybe if you can answer this question, I'm gonna clip this and put a damn ad out of this. When emails are being sent, they're sent from the ESP servers, right?
Yep.
Okay, everyone, we don't send emails. Just right. So
Yep. True.
it goes from the ESP servers. Now that it's going from the ESP servers, I'd like to understand from your perspective, how does someone warm up an ESP or IP server? If you could give us some sort of information on that, beyond just send emails. Do we need to force replies that have to come through on a particular IP? What is the signal that we need to aim for?
Yeah. I mean, it is very similar to warming up, just
Domain.
a domain or an account. Yeah. You can use the same warm up mechanisms. Generally, we just load a bunch of email accounts up onto one of the servers that has an IP address that we need to warm up, and it sends normal warm up emails, the same as if you were warming up,
Got it.
warming up an account or domain. I will say, so you want to pay attention to the volume that you're doing when you're warming up.
Yes. Yes.
There's no necessarily like hard and fast rule about it, but SendGrid actually publishes an IP warm-up schedule, which is probably a good guideline. They've done a lot of this. They know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
and they tell you how many emails you can safely send during the warm-up process from a given IP. It scales
Cool.
very quickly, so it's not a slow process. You can actually do it
Cool.
pretty rapidly. But
Cool.
yeah, that's what I'd recommend.
Sorry, I hate doing this, but
You're good.
2 more questions that I have for you. One,
Let's go.
residential or commercial IPs?
Uh, Commercial, we generally how much
Sorry for
sauce do I
putting you on
want
the
to give
spot.
you?
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. You need to give it
This
away.
this is one of the saucier things I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Institutional IPs from um, kind of benign institutions are what you would want to look for. Like, I'll just say this, like, you know, an IP block owned by a university previously or something like that would be a good choice.
Uh, you worded that really, really subtly there. All right, okay.
Yeah.
We'll save you from any further questions on that side. My second question is, you got the 100% placement rate. Awesome.
Yeah.
How were the actual campaigns or the reply rates of those mailboxes that you used that gave you the good results?
Yeah. So those are doing well. I mean, we're currently seeing reply rates. And this is how I know that campaign quality is still a huge factor, right? Because on the very same infrastructure that we've set up exactly the same, managed exactly the same, we see a huge variance in reply rates. We have clients that send thousands of emails and get no replies, and clients that get, like I said, upwards of a 1% positive reply rate. On the inboxes that are doing well, we generally see 5, 6, 7, 8% reply rates now, sometimes higher. And these are, reasonably good campaigns. I don't think we have too many actually like killer offers that clients are running right now.
Fair
So we
enough.
could probably do better than that, but
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool, man. I guess that's all. Akash, floor is yours, sir. Closing
No,
remarks.
that's pretty much it. We've
Yeah.
come to the end of the session, and this one was the last question. So, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for sharing your insights. This was really insightful, and I hope we took a lot from this. Thank you so much, people. Thank you so much for taking the time. And you know, this happens every Thursday. We respect your time, and I hope you have a great week. Matt, I hope you have a great week too. Cheers.
Thank you. And
See
thank
on
you
the
for
next
having
talk
me.
with us, guys. Absolutely.
Take care, guys.
Pleasure is ours. Bye-bye.
Cheers, all. Bye, everyone. Tag Swapnil on Slack. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.